What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle-earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin and is presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Also, stop by, drop a toy off in one of the bins for their Toys for Tots drive, get an awesome opportunity to win a bunch of prizes and make a kid's holiday time potentially awesome. We'll be talking about that throughout the show as we go forward in this episode of Disguise Coverage. It is Patriots week. We'll be talking Bills versus Pats, scheme, structure, X's and O's, players, position groupings, coaches, anything and everything is on the menu to really put this matchup into focus in terms of what will decide the game, who will decide the game, why and how, and all of those fun things. And I say we because I'm not alone in this episode. I hope if you are a regular viewer of this show for the past 2 years now, I think this would be the third year, you should know that when it is Patriots week, I am joined by pretty much the same person every single time. And so with that being said, I welcome to the stage Mr. Taylor Kyles, Patriots beat reporter and analyst for Patriots CLNS. I say it to you all the time. You are one of the few beat reporters that I've ever encountered who actually know football and X's and O's and stuff that actually matters. And you watch tape and you don't watch it just for highlights or to clip stuff. You actually know what you're talking about and how you break stuff down. You are legitimately one of the best in the business and you're an awesome person. And I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome to the show.
I have never not blushed when coming on the show after one of those intros. Damn you, brother. But I appreciate it. You know, I feel the exact same way about you. We just got done with our little home and home. We came on my pod. That was a lot of fun. So let's keep the train rolling, baby.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of rolling, the Pats are crushing it this year. You know, I shouldn't do that. That's bad form. That's me.
I was like, where are you going with this song, right?
I don't want to be that. I'm not going to do it. I'm
also not that for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I'm just not that guy. I don't know. I don't do that. I don't know why I did that. Nice little segue. I guess it just fit. It just felt like a good segue. But the Patriots.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. The Patriots, a team that, and you know what too, and I'm going to get into this with one of my matchup pieces. I don't care what a team's record is. I will never overlook anyone, but especially the Patriots after what happened last year in New England when the Bills lost. But high-level overview of what this Patriots team is right now. Jacoby Brissett starts the year. Drake Maye, takes over in week 6 against the Texans and has been rolling forward. Got some issues on the O-line, got some issues on the defense. You have a coach for the first time that is not Bill Belichick. Like all of these drama, storyline-filled aspects week in and week out surrounding this team. But when it comes to the actual football aspect of it, what is this team? Who is this team? High-level overview, like describe what the Patriots are right now as a team heading into this game.
So we'll start with the good. Drake Maye.
I was like, Drake Maye.
Drake Maye looks awesome. He's finally a quarterback that I think Bills fans aren't going to be happy to play twice a year coming out of New England. That has not been the case, obviously, since 2019. But really, since week 10, Drake Maye, the first few weeks, there were some kind of boneheaded mistakes. Some that trickled in against Miami a few weeks ago as well. But really, since week 10, the Patriots have been one of the more efficient offenses in the league when it comes to actually moving the football down the field. Now, they have not often been able to punctuate that by actually getting into the end zone. It's kind of funny. They went through a stretch where they were the best red zone offense in the NFL for like 3 weeks with Drake Maye. Then, since then, they've been one of the worst red zone offenses, but they've been one of the most efficient on like a success rate basis. Of course, you can't have nice things in New England, in this day and age, but
you had enough nice things for forever. I am always you had enough nice things for like a lifetime, but continue.
Whatever. I'm with the press, and the present stinks. No, but again, Drake Maye has been the guy that everybody hoped for, that gives some reason for optimism when it comes to this team. Also, they're running the ball better. They really stunk at it for most of the year, and a lot of that, obviously, is the offensive line. David Andrews went down pretty early this season. Now, the only guy on the offensive line who's not a replacement-level starter or worse is Mike Nwenu. So, obviously, there's been some issues there, but the good news is that the run game, their chemistry there is kind of getting better. So, that's one kind of bright light. but now we have to talk about literally everything else. The defense is not as good as a lot of people anticipated, you and I included. I know we both thought that there was a good chance that they could build on what they did last season with Christian Gonzalez finally healthy and Matt Judon being healthy. Obviously, Judon gets traded. Christian Barmore has to deal with blood clots. So early on in the summer, that happened to him. He really didn't play until just a few weeks ago. He's still clearly getting his legs under him, still getting in football shape. I don't really expect him to look like Christian Barmore for the rest of the season. It's just a miracle that he's able to get on a football field.
Yeah.
Barmore largely carried the defense last year. His ability to be disruptive no matter what offenses tried to do to him was a big reason they were so good against the run. And also, you have Juwan Bentley. Last year, you had Lawrence Guy. Like, he had a lot of very good run stoppers. This year, Juwan Bentley, another guy and another captain who goes down due to injury. Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers have both been banged up and have missed a lot of time. At times, they both missed games together. And now I think you can kind of see that their injuries show up on the field. They don't look nearly as explosive, and that's been an issue. The cornerbacks for the Patriots, they've actually been pretty good. Jonathan Jones had like the worst game of his career against the Rams, but everything that they can do to defenses, that's kind of tough. But the quarterbacks like Christian Gonzalez, he's been fantastic. I think he deserves to be an All-Pro this season. Marcus Jones, he's, against Garrett Wilson and Jalen Waddle, they had some big catches on him, but he's been very competitive. And then, for the most part, John Jones is still solid. So the defense has been very disappointing. A lot of that has to do with not having Bill Belichick. A lot of it has to do with just not enough talent or a sufficient level of talent like they had last year. And then, just coaching. Drake Maye is very inexperienced. He hasn't really shown that he brings anything other than being a former player who garners respect. You don't really see on the field and, between these 60 minutes, where is the product that Drake Maye is supposed to be adding? All he really has seemed to do is be able to make headlines because he says silly things at press conferences. They either get taken out of context or he just phrases poorly and then has to walk back the next day. So that's where we're at. The offense is actually sneakily looking good, thanks largely to Drake Maye. Christian Gonzalez is balling out. Everything else for the Patriots has been very, very disappointing.
Early returns on Drake Maye for you. I kind of want to pick your brain on that. You and I had, I think going into the draft, kind of like what we did a little home and home. We do so many home and homes with you and I with our shows. But yeah, a little bit. When you kind of asked me like, what don't you want to see for the Patriots in the draft? And I did not want Drake Maye to go to the Patriots. I had Drake Maye ahead of Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has had a very, very good season. Like what he's done and what Cliff Kingsbury has done, it surprised me, like at least, not even just in their pairing, but like the Kingsbury offense not hitting that like week 10 or 11 wall like they always hit. McLaurin being unlocked, everything that Jaden Daniels has been able to do. But I thought Drake Maye was the second best quarterback in the draft. I really liked him. I did not want him to go to New England. What are your thoughts? Like early returns, sample size is small for both guys. For all we know, one of them or both could, flail out or become the best quarterbacks of all time. So there's so much left to be decided here. But early returns and thoughts on Drake Maye, especially in comparison to like, oh no, I wish Jaden Daniels had dropped, so-and-so. Like, how do you feel right now with Maye, given what you've seen?
He's exceeded my expectations, and I thought he was the best quarterback in the draft in terms of the tools, the off-the-field stuff, or in terms of like personality, work ethic, leadership, and the way that he kind of presents himself as a person who obviously is trying to be the face of a franchise. I thought he had all those things. I thought that it would take time before all of those really came to the forefront. You saw the leader, the crazy talent, because there were some inconsistencies. He's only 22 years old. I know Dane Brugler mentioned that it might take a while for him. Not a while, but just might take time for him to be in an NFL locker room and kind of understand how he fits into that whole puzzle. He's been amazing, man. Like, even going back to the spring and the summer, anytime you ask a coach about him, it's Drake's doing everything that we've asked him to do. He is staying late. He's coming in early. He is showing all the progress we want from him. The only critique that we've heard from coaches that were significant for Drake Maye was a turnover issue. And to be honest, you look at the numbers, and since he started, his turnover-worthy play rate's pretty high, especially considering in college. That was really good for him. And early on, it was like, a sailed pass here, a bonehead decision against the Bears where he doesn't throw it away enough and he gets picked off on the sideline. Like, those things that I thought were going to pop up did happen. But the turnovers, other than some strip sacks, that was like a big issue. Hasn't been strip sacks since against the Dolphins, which was like maybe the biggest rookie mistake he ever made, trying to swim Zach Sealer. He like had the ball out here, and it was just like, oh, Drake, no. Like, that's the kind of thing I give you credit for not doing. So, but with the turnovers, it's something different most of the time. And when you look at the most recent ones, they're not actually his fault. It's usually when he and his receiver just aren't on the same page. So with all that being said, the mistakes haven't been nearly as consistent as I thought they'd be. He's much more accurate. The short passing, the quick game, those were big areas of concern for me.
Yep.
He's been on the money. Like a couple of weeks ago, he had to just keep throwing a bunch of outbreakers against Gus Bradley's cover 3 defense. He was on the money every time. He's throwing with anticipation. He's manipulating defenders. The decision-making, he's happy taking what defenses give him. But when he needs to get downfield in a hurry, you saw last week against the Cardinals, throws a deep bomb in the bucket to Kendrick Bourne, moves a defender and hits Austin Hooper down the seam. Like, you see the aggressiveness. And when he wants to be aggressive, it's like, oh, he's picking his spots and he's picking them well. But what's really impressed me is his ability to avoid the mistakes, avoid the bad decisions, consistently have his eyes in the right place. And when defenses send pressure, like when they try to get him with scheme, for the most part, he handles it very well. So I'm over the moon with the kid. I think he's been fantastic. Very, very few criticisms outside of things that you would expect for a first-year quarterback. And even then, I think in a lot of ways, he's playing like more of a veteran when you see, again, the patience and the poise that he shows week in and week out.
Yeah, I've been impressed with him, and obviously I don't grind as much Pat's tape as you do, but I don't know if anybody does. But
no one should.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, just hopefully the level at which he's taken what defenses have given him is the big one for me. Like, so much of the North Carolina stuff was just like crazy. Like, Caleb Williams, I think, got a lot of credit and praise as this guy who could create like something out of nothing and off script and out of structure. But Drake Maye was doing a ton of that stuff too, like flipping the ball, like left-handed stuff, like crazy things at North Carolina. And my bigger thing, kind of to your point, was like, okay, like how can he refine and play more quarterback, like actually playing quarterback, similar to kind of like not to make the comparison or low-hanging fruit, but because they're two completely different players, but similar to kind of like the Josh Allen conversation. Like, oh man, you got this dude with all these intangibles who can make these crazy plays. Can we just like smooth him out a little bit and get him to play quarterback and not lose the crazy awesome stuff, but just get a little more neutral or a little more consistency? And given the struggles with the offensive line, I think his playmaking ability and athleticism has like lent it to him being able to have success this year in a multitude of regards. But I think he's really set like an encouraging foundation going forward, like regardless of what happens this season. And it's just like, okay, we got the guy. Let's protect him. Let's maybe add some more weapons in some way, shape, or form. Maybe figure things out on the entire defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I've been impressed with Maye. I honestly think Caleb Williams has done some good stuff, but I feel like Caleb is probably third out of like the top 3 QBs this year in terms of like who's played and who's done what.
Bo Nix might be ahead of him, to be honest. I think it's probably like Jaden, Drake, Bo. And
the only thing that holds me back with that, and this is probably doing a disservice to Bo Nix, and also I have not watched enough Broncos offensive tape at all. Also, I saw how a bunch of Broncos people just eviscerated Nate Tice because he made a comment one time. So I want to be very
ridiculous.
That was ridiculous. But I just, the thing that holds me back from the Bo Nix praise is that, I mean, like Sean Payton made like Taysom Hill work as a quarterback. Like, I feel like he could make me work as a quarterback, and my shoulder is shot. Like, that's the only thing that holds me back a little. But Nix deserves his flowers. I just literally have not watched any Broncos. I think it's funny too, because I've watched like 6 or 7 games of like Broncos defense. I not once have been like, let me watch the offense.
I don't think anybody's like clamoring to watch Bo Nix, but like, hey, he's doing what he's got to do. He's making the plays, and at the end of the day, like, Caleb Williams is in kind of a dumpster fire situation. It's not a fair evaluation, but Bo Nix is doing the damn thing, so you got to give him his flowers.
We'll see what happens with Caleb Williams next year when Joe Brady leaves the Bills and becomes the head coach of the Bears. Yeah.
That's an idea. You're not on the Ben Johnson bandwagon?
No, I mean, he can only go to so many places or do so many things. I do think Joe Brady maybe goes to New Orleans just because of his LSU ties, his Saints ties. Like, maybe that works in. But I mean, just with the year that they're having, if Allen wins the MVP, if they get past the Chiefs, like, I just think it's like Joe Brady is going to be a super hot name for a head coach somewhere. And I don't know if you got your pick, if you're Joe Brady, like maybe the Saints call is alluring enough, but like, I don't know, go to Chicago and be like, yeah, I can be the guy who can get the most out of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze and like some pieces there, and we can get some more in the. I feel
Tough job, real tough job.
I know, right? I mean, there's that, but then if it doesn't work out, everybody in Chicago is going to like call for your head after like the first preseason game. So man, yeah, those high markets, it's a dangerous game. Any other thoughts, high level, about the Pats before we dive into the meat of this episode, Taylor?
Let's get into the meat, because honestly, if I keep going at the 1,000-foot view, I'm going to want to jump.
So, damn.
Put it that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I wanted to answer a quick question in the chat from Pops, who asked, Pops said, do the Pats play more zone or man defense? According to SIS, they are predominantly more zone than man, as every defense is, but they have the third highest man coverage rate on the year. So they do play a good chunk of man, but everybody plays more zone than man, and everybody plays cover 3 for the most part as their dominant coverage, despite the too high revolution that some people like to act that everybody's playing too high coverages and too high coverages only, because they gotta hate that conversation.
Well, the Patriots actually, that's been the one difference in their defense. It's they're still playing they're actually playing even more man than they have in the past, which is saying something, because they're always like top 3 in man coverage rate. But really, they're getting away from the cover 3, which a decision I don't personally love.
Yeah, they only have a 23% cover 3 rate this year, which is like low.
Usually they're like middle of the pack because they play a lot of cover 2 as well. Now they're playing more cover 2, really more split safety period. They're playing more cover 2. They're playing more quarters, not a ton, but they're playing more than they used to, because they used to almost never play quarters unless they just didn't have the guys on defense. Like the year before they got Gonzo, when they just had John Jones, Jack Jones, and Marcus Jones, they were just so undersized they couldn't play man, so they played a ton of quarters. But now they got Gonzo, and they are playing more split safety stuff. Also, a little more cover 0, and it's not worked out well for them. I pray that we do not see cover 0 this week, because I can't see Josh Allen taking too kindly to that particular challenge. I think he would absolutely shred them if they decide to do that. But yeah, that's the biggest difference. More cover 2, less cover 3, and a tick more quarters, but not enough that really I think you're going to notice a substantive difference in one game.
Very good insight. Yeah, I just read the data, and you gave the actual meat behind it. Well done. Very well done. Yeah, and cover 0 has not worked out for a lot of teams against the Bills. He's hit Mac Hollins on touchdowns, multiple touchdowns against the Jets, against the Cards. He hit Amari Cooper on a touchdown against cover 0. Teams go to it in like the low red zone. Tennessee did it, and they dropped like 2 defensive tackles, so it was like a cover 0 like hole type of look. And it was a touchdown.
It was like overthinking. Dropping 2 defensive tackles against Josh Allen. Like what's the goal there?
Yeah. And honestly, I'm surprised that the Chiefs usually do it with success. If I'm doing anything in the red zone, especially the low red zone against Josh Allen on third down, I'm dropping 8. And I'm doing like a muddle rush with 3 to kind of keep him penned in. Maybe some odd mirror type of stuff where you're trying to get somebody to just spike inside, get him off the spot, and then take him out with your aggressive spy or flush him or funnel him somehow, some way. Yeah, I'm throwing numbers, because it's just not the one-on-one stuff just has not worked for defenses enough. But to each their own. I'm not a defensive coordinator. What the hell do I know, I guess. Let's move on. Critical elements that will decide Bills versus Patriots. For those who don't know what we're going to do, myself and Taylor, we're each going to give our top 3 matchup pieces that we think will decide this game between the Bills and the Pats. It could be as large scale or as granular as we want. An entire side of the ball, a certain player, a position group, a specific formation, alignment, call, down and distance, area of the field, anything and everything is up for discussion here in this segment on this show. For those of you watching live and playing at home, feel free to comment with your own top 3, or feel free to ridicule or praise each of ours here. The world is yours. Taylor, the floor is yours. You are the guest. I don't know if you have them ranked. If you do, feel free to start with them however, which way, shape, or form you choose to. You may start. Godspeed.
My first one is the Patriots have got to stop the run. That's just, it's not contain the run or, because what's happened in recent weeks is they hold these really good backs under 4 yards to carry. Like James Conner, still really good back, 3.9 yards. I think Jonathan Taylor was at 3.9 yards. Like they've been doing a pretty decent job at that. But the issue is it's a true 3.9 yards per carry. Like the kind where, yeah, sure, I'll take, even if it's not exactly 4, I'll take even 3. Because if I run it and, I say maybe I want to go for it on 4th down, I'm still okay. And that has allowed teams to just basically keep the playbook open, especially since the Patriots aren't blowing anybody out. So all of these games are tight. It allows offenses to still continue to rely on the ground game as the contest goes on. And with this Bills offense, they've had the best rushing attack in the league by when I was looking since at least week 10. So this is not the kind of week where you can just say, oh, yeah, no, it's fine if we just keep getting the body blows. Because if you do that, and then Josh Allen has the ability to just drop back on play action and keep it downfield, you're going to be in a world of trouble. Because one of the Patriots' coverage weaknesses that's the most glaring is them not being able to cover those intermediate or downfield in-breakers off play action. Because their linebackers just don't get enough depth. Their safeties don't get enough depth. And especially if you have to respect the run, you can't just immediately bail. So I think if you just let James Cook and Ray Davis just run the ball at will and you don't show any resistance, then I think the Patriots are going to be in for a really long day, because I don't think you have really any chance of stopping Josh Allen, because they're going to be in ideal third down situations where he can make the smart decision versus 3rd and 7+, where now the defense is dictating and maybe you could scheme up some kind of pressure, because I think that's the only way they're going to slow down the Bills offense.
Man, I was on your show before we went live here, and we talked about it a little bit. So much of this, for as much of the conversation about Josh Allen and the MVP stuff and everything he's done, and he's legitimately having a tremendous year. But the straw that stirs the drink, or at least like puts the drink in the glass, is the run game for the Bills. Like, so much stems from it, and what they're able to get to. Like last year, they were hitting duo early on to start the year, and then they would sprinkle in dart and some concepts like that. Then as the season went on, dart and tackle long trap, all the pull stuff, that became kind of the thing. And then this year, it's just been like weak side mid zone, over and over and over. And then that pairs well with duo, because they'll run it out of like the same formation. They'll run it with like a 7-man surface, and they'll run weak side mid zone to the weak side, or they can line up in that exact same alignment and formation and personnel, but just run duo to the tight end side. But they really
the same way, for what it's worth. They do the same thing.
Yeah, and you see that with a lot of teams too. Like the Rams do it a bunch. Like you get a lot of the teams who are kind of leaning into that type of philosophy and sequencing and pairing with the run game, at least, especially nowadays with how defenses are playing and trying to attack. But it was really, again, that weak side mid zone run. And then as we've gone along the season, Brady started like spamming the presentation of it and then tying that into play action, starting with the Seattle game. And then this past week against Detroit, they busted out everything, which, is one of the points I'm going to talk to. And I guess I'll just kind of, that ties really into my, my first point of just, can the Bills offense stay on this heater that they are on really the last, for really month or so, but really the last 3 games, 17 touchdowns, no turnovers, no sacks, 35 points against the Chiefs, 42 against the Rams in a losing effort, 48 against the Lions. But that Lions game, the run game diversity that you got, the way Brady called, designed, and sequenced that run game, they ran dart. They were running, tackle long trap. You had multiple forms of counter out of multiple personnel groupings and alignments. I'm talking like true, like GT counter, which they do not do. Like GT, GF counter, like that is not staples. They are not like a counter and power type of team. It's mid-zone weak, duo, tackle pull stuff. That's it. So they got multiple forms of counter. They're running the mid-zone stuff. They're pulling out like wing elements like Detroit did the week before against the Packers, that touchdown to Khalil Shakir. You've got the spinner action from Josh Allen, and then Shakir is hipped off from the wing. You've got QB sweep, QB bash, GT counter, dart with a QB read attached to it. You've got tackle long trap bash with the read from the QB attached to it. These are all things that like I just noted as the game went along, because I was writing them down. And then like obviously in the film study and prepping for this, like, and the way Brady didn't just call these things to call them. Like he wasn't like, no, I want to call like 75 different runs this game, so that's what I'm going to do. The way he wove them together with play action, motion, misdirection, adding doubt to the defense, and being able to, again, just sequence everything and make it all mesh with one another. And that's not even talking about some of the past game stuff and like the 4 strong / like 4x1 looks they were getting to, and lining up receivers in the backfield and sending them out on tear motion, or flipping the running back at the last moment and running, same side dart and all that kind of stuff. They've just been on this schematic heater on top of Josh Allen being on an individual heater. And really tapping into just like pure mutant, alien, unicorn stuff. You called him a Super Saiyan on your show when we just talked. Like he's been just like Gohan against like Perfect Cell. Like he just ascended and everybody's like, oh, like what is this that we're kind of seeing? And just, yeah, they've just looked like an absolute unit. Like Allen is pulling out these high variance plays without any of the kind of riskiness attached to it. There's no yin and yang. Like it's just yang. It's just the light side. He hasn't come down to earth. The scheme hasn't come down to earth. The run game from the running back side, like will falter a bit, but then Allen has been on such a heater that even when it does falter, it hasn't mattered. It's just been crazy to see like what they've done offensively and how they seem to have right answers or counters no matter what, organically or kind of from like a manufactured standpoint. It's nuts.
That's why, if I may, my second point, because it transitions perfectly, is they have to contain Josh Allen as a runner. Now, obviously, if he's going to sit back in the pocket, like you always have to marry Russian coverage. That's the only way you can affect the best quarterbacks. Because if, they have a ton of time to throw, then you're hurting the coverage. Somebody gets open. Or if you have great coverage, or if you get to him quickly, but you don't have great coverage, maybe he gets it out just in the nick of time and something big happens. And when I was looking up his scramble numbers, I knew it was crazy. He has 12 big-time scramble throws, which is twice as many as the next closest players. He's the only player with double-digit big-time scramble throws. And then obviously you go back and you look at the Detroit game where we talked about it on my show, the 50-plus yarder that got to the receiver faster than any throw that far or further has gotten to a receiver in the next-gen stats era, which is going back all the way to 2016. He's been a freak. He's going to make his plays. We know that. He's going to get outside the pocket at times. You got to mitigate the damage, but the pass rush, you cannot have times where like Keon Wright's going with the spin move, even though there's no one to really account for the quarterback. You can't have those soft edges and just give him these huge lanes to exploit as a runner or as a thrower. Obviously, he's at the point in his career now where really he's trying to get out of the pocket so he can throw. He'll run if he has to, but he's trying to throw. And then also as a runner on design carries. The Patriots have never really done a great job stopping Josh Allen as a runner. Like I feel like that QB sweep when they're in man coverage just works at least 1 or 2 times a year. And the quarterback run game with Anthony Richardson, it didn't kill them. It was like fewer than 50 yards. But every time Richardson needed a big conversion, he got it. And when he needed to punch it in the end zone, he was able to. Now, there are a ton of ways that Josh Allen can kill you. The design run game with him is kind of just the really unfair cherry on top. It's like basically the Philly sneak almost for me, where it's just like, oh, yeah, you already have this complete cheat code of, for the Eagles, it's an offensive line. Let's also just give a play that nobody can stop. And then with Josh Allen, when you have to think about the design run game, while you're also thinking about James Cook and then just what he can do as a passer, it's a lot to deal with. But if the Patriots don't, once again, it will be a very, very long day and potentially another blowout on Drake Maye's rookie resume. And he cannot afford another one. I will tell you that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm trying not to just be like, yeah, it like doesn't look good because the paranoia that exists in my brain. So I looked up per SIS there are how many players? All positions included. There are 75 players that have at least 50 carries on the year. Now EPA per attempt genuinely, I guess, favors quarterbacks because scrambles usually skew the numbers. It's usually for conversions, first downs, added yards. And that's significant for EPA, which is expected points added. But Allen on the year, as we stand right now, is first out of all 75 players in EPA per attempt at 0.49 EPA per attempt. Pat Mahomes is second at 0.36. So that is a significant gap between he and Mahomes. And then even further, Brock Purdy is third, and he's at 0.29. So there's a 0.20 difference between Allen at 1 and Purdy at 3. Even Jaden Daniels is fourth at 0.27. Like, it's just the level at which he's operated. And then he also has a success rate of 62.6, which is second highest.
Honestly, lower than I would have expected.
Fair. Purdy is first at 64.4. Jaden Daniels is third at 57.1. So there's a good gap between Allen and Daniels as well. Just like what he's done on the ground, the design stuff. Obviously, the QB sneaks and the stuff inside the 5 where he's scoring, it impacts the EPA numbers, but the success rate stuff is there too. It's not just, the points that are skewing it. And how he's tied that run ability, especially from a scrambling standpoint, but now tying it into like these high variance explosives with his arm. And again, you and I feel like we're going to keep saying this. You and I talked about it on your show. That's where this Bills offense lived for a while in the pass game. Like the in-structure pass stuff was not working great, especially from like a chunk play perspective. If they were generating a chunk play, it was pretty much Allen like scrambling. It was, the play to Khalil Shakir against the Baltimore Ravens. It was him making these ridiculous plays with his legs at first and then with his arm. And having that come together, what he's become, is such a force in and of itself. But then when you factor it on top of like the run game, meaning like he doesn't have to do that all the time. So when he does have to do it, it's almost like you're kind of just keeping the horse in the stable and he just gets to sit and chill. And then you're finally like, or like even like a starting pitcher, like you're throwing your bullpen sessions. Then once every 5th day, they're like, okay, I need you to go out there and throw 7 innings right now and like do your thing. But in between, you can kind of just coast. That's what he's getting. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing so much success for him and so much efficiency, because the run game helps him. He's playing within himself. So, and then when he does have to go for those high variance plays, he's hitting them because he's not taxed so much physically or mentally, and so much isn't asked of him. But yeah, the numbers, like what he's hitting on, obviously the tape speaks for the tape, but the numbers are just like so many ways, like passing, no matter who you use and who's charts for EPA, he just crushes it in so much. And I wonder how the Pats try and hem him in. And from an athleticism standpoint, like how do you eye him? Who's trying to match up? Like if someone's trying to chase him down, who is it? Like, I don't know. I feel like you have to make Christian Gonzalez like spy Josh Allen. And even that, I mean, Allen outweighs him by, I don't know, 60 pounds. Maybe like there's just like, no, it's just fun to play these games of like, who would you match up one-on-one? It's like, they don't have one.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody really has a great answer in terms of a spy for Josh Allen, because it's not like just obviously Lamar is so different as a runner, but
yes,
he's elusive. So it's like if you can get somebody who's a very good tackler in space and fast, you have a better chance than not to tackle him, although it's not a very good chance, period. But with Josh, he can run around you or through you. And there's just not a lot of guys in the NFL like that, where truly it's kind of intimidating, the thought of having to tackle him. I think it's probably going to be Brendan Schooler. The Patriots have what's called a Longhorn package because Schooler went to Texas. He's mostly been a special teamer for them, but now they've been using him as more of a spy. He's been good in that role. Christian Ellis, a really athletic linebacker. He's playing more than he should have to, but last week he had a really impressive tackle in space on Kyler Murray, so I figure it's probably going to be those two guys. But the Josh Allen career arc, it really is kind of similar to Patrick Mahomes, it feels like, where now they built around him so he doesn't have to be Superman all the time. You'd like to be able to lean on your ground game and not ask him to constantly do all these crazy things because, yeah, they can do it. But if you ask any quarterback to play outside of structure that consistently, it's a tough place to live. And with Mahomes, it was the whole Andy Reid, like, hey, first 2.5 seconds, my play, buddy. After that, do what you want. And Mahomes learning, okay, I need to play within structure, but when I need to put the cape on, I'll put the cape on and I can be that guy. With Josh Allen, obviously the discipline was the thing that was really holding him back. But now you're finally seeing, oh, he's taking all of the easy stuff. And then when he has to do crazy Josh Allen stuff, he can also do crazy Josh Allen stuff. He just doesn't have to do it to survive. He does it, and it allows the Bills to thrive.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where the Bills offense got into so much trouble. Even like, I think people saw Brian Daboll's Bills offense through like rose-colored glasses once he left, because there was when he was here, there were so many people who were just yelling at Daboll all the time for like the Bills offense. And then I think he got, I think people were too positive about him on his way out and too harsh while he was here. Dorsey, I think, just got too much hate overall. But both Dorsey's offense and Daboll's offense, my joke for a lot with Eric in the film room was just like, if you open up the Bills playbook, it was just a picture of Josh Allen, like doing different things. Like there weren't plays. It was just a picture of Allen doing different, like athletic or like cool things. Now there is more structure and semblance to the offense. And, whether it, ironically ties into the Mahomes trajectory or not, it's so hard to it's so hard to ignore that, given like how the Chiefs went from being like this big explosive play team to like, no, we're going to trade Tyreek Hill and just throw for a low average depth of target. We're going to use 12 and 13 personnel. We're going to run the football. And then the Bills are like, you know what? We're going to go a lower average depth of target. We're going to use more tight ends. And, we're going to run the football. And then the rest of the NFL was like, yeah, we think we're going to do that too. And then the Ravens are like, we've been doing that for years with like Pat Ricard and wild stuff, and nobody pays attention to us or gives us credit. But yeah, it's just the way that I think my biggest thing with Joe Brady is the way the Bills offense moved. And this is going to sound like I'm not giving him credit, but the way the Bills offense moved this year, it's just the way football is trending. And it's just like embracing that trend and going with it. Like heavier personnel, getting into more condensed formations, motion, leverage, speed of motion, rate of motion, different kinds, having a run game, the versatility and run game diversity with it, and play action and marrying all of it. And just, yeah, watching it click has been really, really very impressive. So you've given your first 2 points, correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes,
okay. I never know. I never order them because I'm like, they're all equal. And then I say this every time I do a show. I'm always like, I'm going to do this next one. So the Bills defense got housed from a points perspective against the Lions. I put this out on Twitter earlier today. I did the one. I don't know where it's from initially, but the like the picture of like the guy standing up, and it's always like you caption it with something like you're standing up for. And mine was like, I actually liked a lot of what the Bills did schematically and with several individuals against the Lions, even though they got 42 points hung on them. It was 14 points through pretty much the end of the third quarter, and then just a wild explosion in the fourth in a lot of ways. But what you saw from the Bills defense, a lot of fun. Like they're doing, and I'll get into some of the schematic stuff in a bit, but what you saw still at the end of the day against the Lions and against the Rams from a points standpoint, not great. And then if you look at it from an advanced metric standpoint, the last 2 weeks, the Bills defense, they're last in EPA per dropback. They're 29th in dropback success rate. They're 31st in overall EPA per play. And again, I think they did better against Detroit than they get credit for. They really emphasized shutting down the run. Like from the get-go, 7, 8, 9 guys in the box. They're run blitzing. They're attacking. They are coming forward. Everything was about, putting the Lions on the back foot a little bit. Even something that they never do early on. Lions go condensed. Kyer Elam and Christian Benford are both in press alignment on the number one receiver on each side, and they run a double corner blitz. The running back picks up Kyer, Benford comes free, and it's a sack. They do not run double corner blitz like ever. They don't blitz a ton in general, but they were just playing on the forefront, 4 foot. I don't know how much of it was Detroit specific versus Detroit and the Rams operate similarly offensively, and they were like, we got legitimately killed against the Rams. That's not going to happen again. We're flipping the script and attacking. So they shut down the run. They blitzed. They utilized multiple fronts. Like they used the tight front on multiple occasions, which you do not see. Everything is pretty much 4 down, 4-3 over. You kind of know what you're going to get. They're utilizing multiple fronts. They're covering the center up on a lot of stuff to create 5-0 man-on-man protection, and then they're blitzing and dropping guys. Like 2 things that I thought were really cool. They use the tight front. So for those who don't know, you have a 4-eye. So basically you have a guy lined up on the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle. That's the the 4-eye. You've got a guy lined head up on the center. That's your 0 tech. And then you have another guy lined up on the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle. So a 4-eye, 0, 4-eye. They do it once where it's all defensive linemen. Typical, right? The next time they do it, you have a defensive lineman as a 4-eye. You have Ed Oliver as your 0. Terrell Bernard is lined up as the other 4-eye. Just so creative pieces, what they're doing, what they're leaning into. Like I did like what they did against the Lions. They utilized multiple fronts. They attacked protections. They were running stunts, twists, games up front, games between. Usually if they run stunts, it's just like typical tackle end stunt or end tackle. So your typical stuff. They were running twists between the 0 tech and the linebacker behind him. They're running twists between both defensive tackles. They were getting after it. But obviously gave up the 42 points, legitimately got housed by the Rams. The Rams had their way with them on the ground early, and then that led to a lot of single high coverage, and the Rams ate in the pass. But I say all that to say this. The Patriots offense has had some struggles this year, but last year, again, maybe it's just my paranoia, that first game against New England in New England, horrible. I remember sitting here with you and having this conversation. We were just going over all these metrics, like whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was the Pats offense as a whole. everything was like the Patriots offense is terrible. The Patriots offense is terrible. They go to New England. The Pats hang 29 on them, including the game-winning touchdown drive after the Bills take the lead and Mac Jones just moves them down the field as if he's friggin' Brady. They gave up 29 to an abysmal Pats offense and made it look like Mac Jones was the prince that was promised. Drake Maye, full-time starter since week 6, 19th overall in EPA per play, 15th in success rate, 10th in completion percentage over expected. His numbers and his play on tape are significantly better this year than what Mac Jones was last year when the Pats beat the Bills. But does Drake Maye look like the prince that was promised? Like, can the run game get going a little bit? Like, how much of these Bills defensive vulnerabilities that we've seen are game script specific, matchup specific, team specific, or is there something that's been found out a little bit? And do we continue to see the interior get displaced against the run? Do we see teams get downhill and gouge them in the spine? Do we see teams go condensed and be able to attack them outside the numbers with regularity? How much does game script matter in getting teams away from the run and taking that aspect away? So that's my big number 2. Like these Bills defensive, I guess I'll put them in quotes, vulnerabilities. How much of them are here to stay, or how much of them were matchup or opponent specific the last 2 weeks, given that how the Lions and Rams operate schematically naturally gives the Bills problems because of their motion and the way they attack with leverage. And then they also have really good offensive minds and really good players on top of it.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my third point, to be honest. So for me, the Patriots do have to stay on schedule. And that's like, yeah, no duh. That's kind of how you win in the NFL. But there are some teams that
score more points than your opponent.
Yeah, like, just simple things like that are kind of important in football games. But for the Patriots, they've actually done a pretty good job. Because if you look at going back to week 10, all the efficiency numbers and like the EPA per play, really not explosiveness, but if you look at consistency, they've been one of the best offenses in the NFL. They have the ability to move the ball. A lot of that is because the run game is starting to get going, where Antonio Gibson, if you look, he doesn't get a ton of opportunities, but if you look at like a per play basis, he's been one of the most efficient backs in the NFL over the past like month and a half. Ramondre Stevenson's not making people miss quite as much, but it does seem like he's getting some positive momentum going. Basically, just run behind Mike Onwenu and whoever's around Mike Onwenu, and it's usually a pretty good strategy. They've been able to do that the past few weeks. That's really helped them. Drake Maye, like we talked about earlier, the Patriots receiving core doesn't really scare you, but they've got guys like Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, to a degree Kendrick Bourne, where they're at least pros. Now, Kendrick Bourne makes a lot of mistakes, so sometimes when I use that pro moniker, I feel like it's not totally true, but you also do see that he just has more experience than the other guys. When like plays break down or what have you, it just seems like he and Drake Maye are a little more on the same page. So the receivers don't really scare you, but Drake Maye can maximize the guys around him, which was obviously what you hoped from him coming out of the draft, because he's going to put it on the money. You just got to actually make the catch, which Patriots receivers haven't always been doing. It's led to his last 2 interceptions. Both went off his receivers' hands. But so I say all that to say, the running game has been pretty good. It's been there for you. It's inconsistent. There are times where it just falters at literally the worst times, like, at the 4-yard line on 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1, or, against the Colts when you really need a conversion in scoring territory and you don't get it. Like those times, the run game falters, and that's really unfortunate, but they've mostly been good. But the offensive line continuously puts this team in bad positions, whether it's penalties, whether it's completely blown assignments, whatever, it's low snaps. Last week, Ben Brown, their backup center, put it on the turf 2 times. It went down as fumbles on the stat sheet. Like every time they're gaining momentum and doing something good, some ridiculous, usually mental error happens, and then they end up getting behind the 8 ball, and they're not good enough to live in that kind of world. Drake Maye can get them out of it every once in a while, but they just can't do it on a consistent basis. So the big thing here is like you can move the ball. Finishing drives, that's going to be another area where they need to have a strong emphasis, but they punched it in 2 or 3 times last week. Hopefully you can continue to build on that. But stop shooting yourselves in the foot with these penalties if you're the Patriots, because if you do that, you are going to put yourself in an impossible position against, obviously, the Bills defense is struggling to a degree, but as you mentioned, they're doing a whole lot of stuff that's really interesting schematically, so they're not the same defense you've seen, and obviously Josh Allen, James Cook, and that Bills offense are what they are. So just don't hurt yourself offensively, and I do think they can maybe keep this competitive.
It's funny how our points keep weaving into one another seamlessly. That ties in perfectly to my third point. Real quick, I wanted to pull some stuff on the Patriots O-line. It's not great. Sorry.
It's
Per,
not. It's not. It's not.
That's fine. Per PFF, they have the lowest pass blocking efficiency score on the year. For reference, the Broncos are first at 91.8. The Patriots are last at 78.5. So that is that's a significant drop right there. Power success from FTN Fantasy, which is something that I really like. It is the percentage of runs basically on third or fourth down, 2 yards or less to go, that get you either a first down or a touchdown. It also includes first and goal or second and goal from the 2-yard line or closer. When you look at power success rate, the Patriots are 27th in that regard. And then another one that I like too is stuff percentage, which is just percentage of runs where the running back gets tackled at or behind the line of scrimmage. Higher, like the higher percentage, the worse that is. The Patriots are 18th in the league in that regard. So not too crazy or too bad with that, but you look at a lot of the metrics and where they stand from an offensive line perspective, you want to put it together. Even without the tape, it's not great. And then they also have the second highest quarterback pressure rate on the year at 40.8. On the offensive side, they're only behind the Titans at 40.9. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean. I just wanted to.
No, when we do these home and homes, it's mandatory that we have at least one section where you haze me with bad Patriots.
No.
It's okay. It's okay. They're bad. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. They're the ones putting up the stats. You got to inform your listeners. I just got to sit here and be a good sport.
I'm not doing it to be mean. It's just part of the conversation. Just part of the conversation. I'm also very wary because this is very similar to how the conversation went last year for their first game. Like you and I both talked about just how bad the offense is on tape and schematically. And then, they come out and hang 29. So I want to keep putting it out there before we see the Bills get like no pressures and Drake Maye go for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And everybody's like, you said their line sucked. You said they would be able to do anything. Yeah. Like just where crazy things can happen. But the piece that you said ties really well into my third point. Long title here, Ford, for me. How much schematic variety do we see from the Bills on either side of the ball? / do they need to use schematic variety to beat the New England Patriots? Again, I touched on it a little bit offensively and defensively, but we really saw the Bills against Detroit get into a lot of looks defensively and offensively that they traditionally do not do. They are very much, and even for the offense, for as successful as it's been, they really just spam several run concepts depending on the matchup. They'll spam several, pass concepts. They might, tweak the presentation. Okay, we're going to do it out of, tight. We're going to do it out of spread and motion a guy in, and then we'll run smash and we'll switch who's the corner and who's the China and who's the underneath, like that kind of stuff. Like little tweaks here and there so you can't just completely key in. But it's not a ton of, like, you pretty much know what you're going to get on both sides of the ball. And again, just I don't know, and I'm going to say this again because I do think it's important. I don't know how much schematic variety we saw against the Lions. Like, would that have happened? Oh, like, was that the plan already? Or did they bust out more of that because of how bad the Rams game went? Like, I want to know how much of the schematic variety we saw on both sides was like, hey, we cannot lose this game. We need to win this one. Let's pull out some of the stops, or we're pissed. Let's come out and try and boat race these dudes at home. Like, we're going out swinging. Or again, was it just like, no, this was going to be the game plan regardless. And here's what it was. Because again, they just got into so many looks offensively and defensively, the tight front stuff, like the 5-0 protection and man protection stuff they were creating, the blitz looks, all the heavy boxes that they were going with. And then offensively, just the way they were going to counter and the way they got into dart and the presentation with the motion and the personnel and alignment, all of that really it was fun and it was good to see. But a lot of it was stuff that they very rarely or never press the button for. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder how much we see that in this game. And I wonder how much they need to. Like, is this a game where it's tied in the third quarter and they're like, you know what? We have to keep pace with the Chiefs. We want that 1 seed. Let's bust out some stuff a little bit. Or is this game decided as the second half starts and they're like, we're just going to run duo and then just play, quarters and cover 3 and that's it, and go home and stay home and that's it. Like, how much do they need to use it? How much do they use it? How much does the matchup dictate it? Because I'm still very like that's my biggest takeaway from that Bills and Lions game. Just how much variety we saw on both sides of the ball that we traditionally do not see. Like things that it was like, oh, like they might do this here and there that they did a bunch more, or things that they never do that they did. They really feel like they were kind of like emptying the clip a little bit, and it worked out, especially offensively and a little bit more on defensively than I think it's getting credit for.
I think defensively it'd be a good idea to have some variety and show some different things, because I think Drake Maye is the kind of quarterback, even already, where you need to spin the dial on him, because if he knows what's coming pre-snap, he's locked in and he does a pretty good job exploiting things. Offensively for the Bills, I think, do you need to get fancy and, a lot of window dressing and all that?
Yeah.
I don't think you do. I just don't think this is a talented enough defense where realistically they're going to be able to stop the Bills from doing whatever they want to do on a pretty consistent basis outside of maybe throwing whoever Christian Gonzalez is covering. That's going to be the one thing that they're going to do very well, is they're going to take that person away. But I don't think you need a lot of, again, fanciness on offense. Now, that said, if you do want to incorporate like some motions and things where it just looks a little bit different, kind of throws you off your keys, I think that's where you can make the Patriots defense look really bad. Because the games where they have been flustered were the Rams and then the Dolphins. Like all that motion and all the different things that those guys do to disguise their looks and kind of just create confusion, it worked. It worked to a T. So, again, I think the Bills will be fine if they just kind of do what they do. But if they say, hey, no, like we want to make sure that we make a statement in this win, like we're not taking any chances because we do want to get our seeding and we want to make sure that Josh Allen doesn't have to play the next time the Patriots and the Bills face off, then yeah, you can incorporate some things to maybe really capitalize on the fact there's not a lot of experience on the Patriots defense, and the guys who are experienced are banged up. So it's like one false step ends up turning into explosive play. It feels like every single week.
Yeah, very fair. I was surprised this game got flexed. It made me think like the NFL knows something that we don't, or the script writers were like, no, this is going to be a banger. We're putting it at 425. Like there's something going on. Like,
I think it's so I think we talked about this when the schedule came out. It seemed like the last month was them banking on Drake Maye starting, because you had Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake Maye, the top picks. And now it's the two quarterbacks that Drake Maye was compared to in the entire draft process, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Both of those games got flexed. I don't think that's coincidence. I think the league just wants people to be able to see Drake Maye and Josh Allen. I just pray that the defense doesn't embarrass them and just make it so that you can't even enjoy Drake Maye like last week, where Drake Maye does some really cool stuff, has a couple awesome scoring drives at the end of the game, but we barely talk about it because the defense was absolutely putrid. So we'll see.
Very fair. Very fair. One question here from the chat. We talked earlier about high level stuff on the chat. Yeah, the chat's fantastic. Charles wants to know what the vibes are on Coach Mayo. First year, no more Bill Belichick. Obviously, big changing the guard. I can't remember. Things are bleeding into one another. I can't remember if you said it on this or on your show before we did this show. Mayo just saying some foolish things in the media a little bit, which is big time opposite of Bill Belichick, who is very much just like, oh, we're going to play the game and try and score more points than the other team. That's it. What are your thoughts here on Mr. Mayo? Mr. Mayo makes me laugh because it sounds like Mr. Mayor, and that's not from anything. It just makes me laugh. What are your thoughts on him? Early returns on him in this first year as Patriots head coach?
Not good. Vibes are bad among the fan base, among reporters. I know we're frustrated because, I'm newer to the beat. This is my second season, but the older heads who've been here for, the dynasty and they've seen the excellence, they've been upset because the standard has fallen off so dramatically. Now, Belichick's obviously a big part of that. Belichick needed to be replaced. Things were getting really bad. But even still, the whole cultural change that Drake Maye was supposed to bring was it's a little bit less hard-ass, which was the new organization's words. Literally, Elliot Wolf said they were going to not be as hard-ass as they were before and, give players ownership, da-da-da-da-da. Well, sometimes you got players saying things that they wouldn't usually say. It doesn't happen a ton, but especially among the wide receivers, we've gotten some comments where Belichick, I think, would have nipped it in the bud pretty quickly. Drake Maye used to work in media. He's a really gregarious guy. He wants to be respectful of us, and he wants to have a good relationship with us. But his attempt to be transparent and be himself has turned into every week, multiple times, we're having to deal with some quote that he said where he phrased it poorly or said something because he was upset. Like I asked him a question a couple weeks ago and he brought up the Super Bowl win against Seattle, which like, dude, you weren't the coach. You have no right to bring that up. And he had to apologize for it the next day. And he had to apologize for something this week. And now Mondays are just becoming a joke where, oh, it's Mayo walk back Monday, because he keeps saying the wrong things. And hey, if he was winning, no one would care. It's like Nick Sirianni. He gets to fly under the radar because the Eagles are winning, right? And no one really kind of digs into the fact that he's a weird guy. And it feels like everyone else is doing things right around him. And he's basically just trying not to get in the way. And then when the Eagles start losing, he's at the forefront and you see all the weird stuff he does. And everyone's like, oh my God, this guy, like they need an adult in the room because he's just so immature. That's what's happening with Mayo. If he was winning, I don't think people would care. When he was winning, all of his personality, all those things after the opener, people were like, oh my God, he's getting the players to play hard, da 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 da. But when you're losing, people look at everything and everything is going to get picked apart. And even worse, he's like supposed to be the CEO type head coach, but he made his bones as a defensive player. He was a middle linebacker in Bill Belichick's defense for years. They called him Baby Belichick. He then was the de facto defensive coordinator. But now he's removed himself from the defensive side of the ball for DeMarcus Covington, who I was excited. He'd been in the system for a long time. Players were like, hey, he knows the defense front to back. I'm thinking, hey, maybe he'll bring a new spin on things, whatever. The defense has been terrible for the most part. They've been really, really bad. And injury and talent is a huge part of that. He did not inherit the defense that Bill Belichick was coaching last season.
Yes.
But there have been far more fundamental errors. Players don't seem like they're very well prepared or as aware as they used to be, which inexperience and all that is one thing, but it felt like under Belichick, and obviously it's an unfair comparison, but because that is the natural comparison, players really rarely looked like they didn't know what was coming. It felt like they were always a step ahead, and now they're not. And obviously that reflects on coaching, and Mayo continues to be the CEO head coach and is not involved on defense. But in his CEO role, I don't know what he's doing that brings, that's
value. Yeah.
He's not, there's no innovation. There's no exceptional level of resilience. They've shown resilience at times. It was why I gave Mayo some benefit of the doubt. Rookie head coach, you inherited a bad roster. It's going to be tough. What I saw against the Cardinals was the first time where I was like, this is really bad, to the point where people talking about him getting fired his first season. If this keeps happening for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think that that's a realistic possibility, because they seemed so unprepared coming off a bye week. They lacked, I think, energy for a lot of it. And then the way they finished the game too. They were decent towards the middle. They were just allowing field goals, bending, not breaking. Then you allow 2 touchdowns. One was tough because it was coming off an interception, but like both times James Conner walks into the end zone. And there's been other games where they played poorly, but then tightened up at the end, and you're saying, okay, just get better players. And maybe this is a little different. Get healthier, whatever. But I keep bringing myself to the question of, what does Jerod Mayo bring to this football team? I can't answer it. And I can say what he's been doing poorly. I can say what the team has done poorly. I can acknowledge that, at times they've gotten better and they've shown progress after bad losses, but now it's starting, like, things are snowballing. And it's getting to the point where I know it's your first season and I know this is not an ideal situation, but you expected more from someone who spent so much time under Bill Belichick, who's being groomed by Bill Belichick, not to take over. Bill didn't know about that part, but, he was being put in position there. So exactly. So what do you do here is basically what I'm just consistently asking Jerod Mayo, and I've not been getting many answers of late.
Yeah. I really do think you're spot on. Like, that's my outside perspective, and you are much, much, much more inside than I am. It just, seems like, okay, if you're not doing the schematic stuff, like, I can understand one way or the other faltering. Like, okay, well, he's not doing the CEO stuff right because he's so in the weeds coaching this one side of the ball. Or like, he's not great with the X's and O's, but he's a CEO type of coach. That's not the type of guy. But he seems to be faltering at both. And the media stuff on top of it, like, it really just
so bad. He needs genuinely.
It's really just, and I don't know if I thought more from I expected more from him or from the organization as a whole. Yeah, I'm just very surprised at how much things have kind of fallen off the rails with him, with the defense. Again, I know the injuries are a significant part of that, but it is disconcerting to the point that, like, and you said it, like, I was already thinking this year, I was like, dang, like, is is Mayo like a fire candidate? Like if things go bad these last 3 weeks, like if he only pulls out like these 3 wins and they get housed going down the stretch, or is it another like, it's 1 year, and do they roll with like, you lost Judon at the last minute and, Barmore at the last minute, we'll kind of build and see where you go from there. You got the quarterback, or is faith completely lost? Like, I think that is a really sneaky kind of interesting one. If they don't turn around a little bit, like if they just get housed down the stretch, is it one of those, like, is he on the hot seat? Like, do you think that's a possibility?
It's got to be a possibility if he gets blown out multiple times to end the year. Now, it's tough because you want stability around Drake Maye. But, like, Drake Maye is the future of this franchise. He has shown and lived up to the investment you made in him. Now, on one hand, you don't want to keep changing everything around a young quarterback. It's one of the worst things you can do. But also, you don't want to waste time, especially in his rookie contract, if Drake Maye is not providing anything as a head coach. The one thing you cannot do as a coach, especially as a rookie coach, is lose the locker room. When that happens, that's when first-year coaches get fired. When it seems like guys aren't acting, like guys are kind of out of line, they're saying things they shouldn't be saying, it seems like they're not motivated, maybe they're not really defending him. Now, to be fair, players are still defending Mayo vehemently. That is still a factor, and I think that's why he's not actually going to get fired. I think they give him one more season with the better roster and see what he can do. But yeah, if this gets worse, and obviously if he ends up losing the locker room because things get worse, then yeah, you got to fire him. You got to move on because you need to make sure you maximize Drake Maye's window, and also just get an adult in the room, because that's been the biggest thing. Is at least now behind closed doors, it seems like Mayo is very different. It seems like his approach works. In terms of, the buyback that he gets, or the buy-in, that he gets from players. But on the outside, it just seems like they need more experienced people. Like they need someone who doesn't keep putting his foot in his mouth, or just has a better understanding of how all this works. Because it's just he reeks of inexperience. So you understand that. You knew what you were getting yourself into if you're the Crafts, and you're probably gonna have to bite the bullet. Because it's especially because Alex Van Pelt has done a great job developing Drake Maye. So you don't really want to kneecap the offensive coaching staff, make some changes maybe, but you don't want to just kick Van Pelt out the door because he did a pretty good job. Offensive coordinator, he's fine. The scheme isn't anything new. I don't love some of the play action concepts, but like for the most part, like I said, they're moving the ball well enough. If they get an offensive line, I think he's fine. But the defense, it's really hard to justify the defensive coordinator and then Drake Maye, whatever he's doing. So again, I'm ranting now because you got me fired up. But yeah, he could absolutely get fired if this continues to spiral down.
The one that got me, and it was in the preseason, was that quote about like if you get in a fight, like if you're a starter, you're going to play the whole preseason. If you're not a starter, you won't play at all. And I remember like hearing that quote, and I was thinking like, okay, like that's not bad. But in my head, I was like, I feel like you have to have some kind of credibility behind you to say something like that. And then like, because if you're just some guy saying it, it kind of looks like corny. And then if your like team is bad, then it's one of those things like if the Pats were fighting for a playoff spot right now, I think you look back at a quote like that, and this probably isn't right because it's super hindsight, but you look back at a quote like that and you're like, you know what? This guy set the tone right from the preseason, and they've really been able to move forward with it. Now I think back to a quote like that, and it's more just like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And like, you need an adult in the room. And like, he says things that like, you just shouldn't say, or the message is right, but the way he delivers the message or the word selection isn't right. And it's
like when he called the team soft.
Yes.
I remember I heard it and I was like, I get it. Cause I know Belichick's tenets are, you got to stop the run the ball, and cover kicks. Yeah. That's a tough team. I understood what he meant. And I didn't really, this was before I really, even still, I think a lot of what he says gets overblown, but the phrasing of it was bad because the next day he did have to say the team wasn't soft, they played soft. Yes. And that was how I interpreted it. And also like his credibility is that he did play linebacker in Belichick's defense. Yes. He was the captain. Like players understand that and they respect him for that. But it's things like that where maybe you don't even say that to the media, maybe because he said it to the team. And that was another thing where I'm like, all right, you said it to the team. It's not like you're saying it behind their back and they don't know. Yes, it's the same message, but you could also argue he shouldn't have said it, period. That's not a message for the media. And you phrase it like that and it becomes a complete firestorm. And like they're covering it nationally. As a rookie head coach, you should not be making national headlines because of what you're saying in press conferences. Like that's one of the bare minimums. And that is one of the most egregious places where it's like, yeah, you're losing and you're exacerbating it and putting yourself in the spotlight as the head coach.
Yeah. And he just, to your point, like, I don't think he's ever said anything super egregious where I'm just like, oh my God, but he opens himself up for unneeded criticism. And especially when you are having the year that you're having, just you can't waver in any way, shape, or form. Like, you can't afford to open yourself up at all because you're not, Nick Sirianni, and the team isn't crushing. And look how too the Sirianni example, like anytime the Eagles falter, the vultures come out for Sirianni, and they are just ready. And the only thing keeping everybody at bay, the only thing that's keeping, the wolves at the door is the fact that they win. And anytime they lose, yeah, they get that dub. And anytime they lose, the door opens and like one or two wolves like pop in, and you just can't put yourself in that situation. You can't falter. It's better to say less than say more. And I feel like he's saying a lot, and he's saying it in not great ways. And yeah, I'm really interested. One quick question for you. This was actually in my mind, and then Joe asked it in the chat, and I thought it was fate. Joe wants to know what direction you think the Pats will go in with their first round pick. Is it offensive tackle or bust? Do they take a flyer on Travis Hunter as a two-way guy? What are your thoughts here? I just kind of shade it. In an ideal world, I think it would be offensive line. I just don't think there's an offensive lineman that's going to be worth like the top 3 or top 5 pick.
My ideal situation is they get 1-1 and they find some way to trade down. I think getting another first round pick is going to be huge. Because again, they lack talent. I think you need those premium picks, and you want to be a draft and develop team. One, hopefully in free agency, you're not, toxic and people actually want to come to New England. But really for them, I think the way to go is the best player available with the pick. I think if that's Travis Hunter, that's a blue chip player. I think, you play him at cornerback, you give him a package on offense, because he's not even like Marcus Jones, where Marcus Jones is purely a gadget player. He can run a hitch, he can run a slant, he can run a go. So you can actually kind of use him. Obviously, it's going to be tough because you're in different meetings and there's nuances to wide receiver. Like, it's not easy to just go out and play receiver for like 10 snaps or whatever. But I think Travis Hunter's the kind of talent where it's really hard to pass up on him. Again, hopefully they can trade down, but hard guy to say no to. If it's Ted McMillan, a guy where the Patriots, Drake Maye can make a lot of what he has, but you'd also like a sure-handed guy who's got size, can threaten vertically, and is a red zone presence, and you can move him around the field and kind of funnel things through him, and then have that movable piece that really dictates what happens in the passing game. So, and even, Will Johnson, I don't love the idea, to be honest. Like, Travis Hunter's kind of different. Like, he is so good that it's just hard to say no because of the value he brings on both sides. I just don't think corner, even with best player available, I don't think you ever go 100% one way. We've talked about this. I think it's foolish to say just BPA or just draft for position because you're going to get yourself in trouble doing too much of one or the other. But Abdul Carter, like a pass rusher, that's a premium position. The Patriots have no pass rush. I'd be open to that. Just get a truly rare athlete who can turn into a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro. Because if you can go Christian Gonzalez, Drake Maye, and then this draft you hit another home run, like, that's where you finally start getting the blue chip talent that you don't have. But yeah, I don't think it's OT or bust. I don't think it's any position or bust. I think you look at the premium positions, especially where you have holes, and you try to fill them with the best players available.
I really, really, really like Will Johnson, and I'm salivating at the idea of like Will Johnson and Christian Gonzalez, or even with Hunter. Like, it, I feel like this is just me assuming. I could be completely wrong. I feel like Hunter would want to play receiver first because receivers get paid more. And I feel like he'd want to do that. I would want to put Hunter as a full-time corner and then have him be like receiver 4 and just have specific package plays in for him, whether it's as a decoy or tendency breaker or stuff for him.
Exactly.
But that's fun too. Like, the idea of like Travis Hunter and Christian Gonzalez as your corners, like, man, that's super fun. I'm a defense first guy, so like that's super intriguing to me. Like, I really don't think you can go wrong with a lot of the dudes there. But yeah, it doesn't feel like there's, I shouldn't say this because I haven't done my tape scouting yet. This is just me watching a ton of broadcast college football. Like, I don't know if there's anybody that's like a hard, you got to take this dude. Like, I feel like a trade down option might be nice, but again, like, I don't know. Abdul Carter looks pretty sick. I like Hunter. Will Johnson is such a good, technically sound corner. He's got the size. Like, Hunter has to thicken out a little bit to be an NFL corner, like, or NFL player in general. Like, he is like, I hate this word gets used so much and I hate it, but he literally is a dog, like with just how he plays.
Oh yeah.
But he can't play like that at the NFL at 173, 174 pounds. Like, he is far too physical to sustain that. He's going to break a collarbone or a shoulder. Yeah, like that stuff's not going to play with regularity. So does he thicken out? How does that change? Like him as a player? Oh, yeah, that's a lot of fun conversations to have. Crazy that we're talking about draft stuff for the Patriots in December. How the turn.
It's become a routine these days.
Sorry. I know, it's crazy. If only you had like 6 Super Bowls to fall back on and dry your tears with. Oh no.
I live in the present, and the present sucks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm sorry. Yeah, just fold your arms and turn around.
No, Drake Maye. It's honestly, last year was way more bleak, and I don't think it was even close. When it was Mac and you didn't know what the draft order was. Like it could be so much worse. Drake Maye is better than I could have anticipated. So really, I got to stop complaining. It's not that bad.
No, yeah, he's balling out, and especially considering. Maybe balling out's too strong, but I think like considering the level he's playing at schematically, given what's around him and what's happening, like I think it's very fair to be super excited for the future. Very nice. Anything else on your mind when it comes to this matchup before we start to wind down?
I think I got it all out of my system. Like my back literally hurts from that Mayo little spiel. So
I'm sorry.
I think I'm good. It is what it is, man. I say it on my show. I'm just bringing the same energy. I want to make sure that your amazing fans get the full lowdown on what's going on in Foxborough. Nothing other than Drake Maye to be too worried about in the division, at least from this corner.
Beautiful. I appreciate it. We are going to start to wind down a bit before we say our goodbyes and give some final thoughts on some things. I continue to bring this up from the sponsor, One Pie Pizza. You folks know the drill. The best pizza in Buffalo. I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they truly are the best pizza in Buffalo. Also, they named a pizza after the show, which I think is super cool. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. I've never had a pizza like named after me or anything I've been a part of, so that was pretty awesome. But they continue to do their Toys for Tots drive. So go in, get some amazing pizza, some homemade blue cheese. They also do catering and lots of different like food options, but the pizza is, the winner there. Get yourself some amazing food and drop a toy off for the tots if you can. I say this every single week. I love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday. I know it's a favorite holiday for a lot of people. It's not for some, and it can be a bad time or not so awesome time for the less fortunate. So if you are able to stop down at One Pie Pizza, drop a toy off, get some food while you're at it, or even if it's not at One Pie and their Toys for Tots at a church or donations, anything you can do to kind of make someone's holiday a bit better. I think it's awesome if you do that. And so, but if that doesn't appeal to you and the pizza doesn't appeal to you, maybe one of these prizes will. So every toy that you drop off, you get a raffle ticket to increase your odds of winning one of the prizes listed there. First place is a signed Josh Allen custom jersey. Second place is a signed James Cook jersey. Third place is 1 free pizza a month for a year. That would honestly be my choice because the pizza is amazing. Fourth place is 4 free pizzas. Fifth place is 1 free pizza. So go down to One Pie, drop off a toy. Things are starting to wind down. The 18th is starting to when they start to close some things out and start to go there. So hurry on down. Get some pizza, drop some toys off for the tots, do some good things for the community this holiday. And online menu and all their stuff can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you are listening to this show on. Taylor, you were awesome. I appreciate the hell out of you. Just in case people don't know who you are, where they can find you, what you do, all that stuff, the floor is yours. Tell people anything and everything you want.
Thank you, buddy. Pleasure as always. But yeah, most of my content, if you just want to like hear my thoughts, my film and all that, is at tkyles39 on Twitter. My written work is at clnsmedia.com. All my Patriot stuff. Also, my videos, my show Patriots Daily is on Patriots Press Pass over on YouTube. So make sure to check that out. I do film breakdowns. Upgrade to QP. Yeah. That's pretty funny. But Twitter, clnsmedia.com, Patriots Press Pass. And I also do some work with Pat's Pulpit. So those are all the spots where you can find my stuff.
Taylor, you are genuinely, and I keep getting tongue twisted over generally and genuinely. I'm falling apart. It's been a long week, and it is, but it's Tuesday. I'm just falling apart. I've had a week already. I've had a last 2.5, 3 weeks. It's been wild. But yeah, you were great, as anticipated, as expected. You delivered. The chat was throwing you love the entire time. So thank you very much for stopping by. Thank you very much to Joel, to Jason, and Carl for your super chats. Thank you for being here in general, but also the super chats. That is Awesome and very much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who joined us live here on this episode of the show. If you did not watch live and you watch later on YouTube, that's cool and appreciated as well. Whether you're here live now or watching post live later, please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist here on YouTube. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. If you thought the show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch it. Subscribe to the Cover One channel, all of the fun things. Give me a follow on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Follow me on Blue Sky at proant. That's pro no underscores ANT. That'll do it for us here in this episode of Disguise Coverage. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Disguise Coverage, or tomorrow in the film room with myself and Eric Turner. Until then, Godspeed. And as always, go Bills. Sorry, Taylor.